Welcome to this special Sydney Catholic Schools live stream presentation. My name is Andy Martin. I'm Assistant Principal at LaSalle Catholic College in Bankstown, and today I'm here on behalf of my friends and colleagues at the Mission and Identity team at Sydney Catholic Schools. We're delighted to have as our guest today Father Friedrich Bechina. After being ordained a priest in 1996, Father Bechina was involved in pastoral service and teaching in schools in Austria until 2001. From that time until 2022, he was appointed to the Congregation for Catholic Education of the Holy See, the body that we now know as the Dicastery for Culture and Education. In this capacity, Father Bechina served under 3 popes, including a decade of service as the Undersecretary of this body. Presently, Father Bechina is a member of various boards and advisory councils of Catholic educational institutions, and he works all over the world as a consultant in education. Today, he's our guest at Sydney Catholic Schools. Father Bechina, welcome.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here.
Good afternoon.
Have you been enjoying your time in Australia?
Absolutely.
How long have you been here?
I came into the country in 18th of August for the National Conference of Catholic Education, Catholic Schools in Cairns.
Yeah.
Totally other world than here in Sydney.
It's a little bit warmer than here in Sydney, yes?
Yeah, but it's beautiful.
Right. And while you've been here, have you visited many schools? Have you visited any of our schools in Sydney?
I have visited not the big number because I'm more meeting with school principals, with teachers, with the heads of office and other system leaders for the Catholic education system. But I had the joy to see some schools, and 2 schools here in Sydney, the Cathedral School St Mary's.
Okay. Hi to all the kids and teachers at Cathedral School.
Yeah, and then I also have seen the Patrician College in Fairfield.
Ah, that's near us in Bankstown.
Yeah, and both really, really impressive. So I only regret that I'm far too old. Otherwise, I would like to enroll in one of those schools.
Ah, well, that's a high amount of praise. You've been to Australia many times, Father. What are your impressions of our Catholic schools and universities here?
So when I first came to Australia, it was with a student choir in the late 80s.
A choir?
Yeah, we had a concert tour here in Australia.
Okay.
So I knew about the country and a bit the culture and many other things which you get as a student when you come to a new country, which widens your horizon. And then I came back in the 2007, 2008 because of my work and came to know quite well, I think, the Catholic schools here and the education system, which is definitely one of the flagships of the Catholic Church, we may call it like that. And flagships are there where you are more ahead of others, where you can give a good example to others, where you can test out also new strategies, which maybe become also good practice for others. And this is something which I've enjoyed here. Definitely it has to do also with the good funding situation, which we have to look at because can change.
Yeah, we should.
And I think we have always also a bit to fight for it and to negotiate and give good reason that the money that's public money which is funded in Catholic education is well invested, and there is good research here in Australia to demonstrate this.
I'll say. Hey, something we do in Australia is when we're gathering for an important occasion or a broadcast like this, sometimes we acknowledge country. And we were talking about before, oh, should we acknowledge country? Oh, I can acknowledge country.
Yeah,
that's and you said, oh, no, let me do it.
That's an interesting point because can imagine when I was here in the late 80s of the previous century, this was not a topic, and it was totally different. So when I came back for the first time to Australia, it struck me that we had to begin the conference where we were, and it became very solemn, and they said, and I want to say this now on my own, that I want to acknowledge that we are here and we acknowledge the owners and the stewards of the land, the leaders of the First Nations to be here. the past ones, the present ones, and also the future ones. And I thought quite a lot of it because the first impression as foreigner you may get is that this is just a question of political correctness. But I think there is some wisdom in it. And when I was thinking about it, is a question to myself. Do I believe that if I'm now talking here, that I'm the first one to speak wisdom and that I'm the culmination, the most important? Or is it rather that I have to listen to something that was before me, to listen to the traditions, and then to know that I have here and now my responsibility, but there will be generations after us, and they may build on something that is much older than what we brought, and hopefully we have brought to our generation something which future generations will then also acknowledge and appreciate. That is a bit my hope. I don't believe that now in this meeting we will have so much wisdom which I would share. That definitely not.
But Father Bechina, I understand what you're saying. Our tradition is about keeping story.
That's one thing, and the other thing is, and that's part of our Catholic tradition. The Catholic tradition was never the idea that we have the culture and we bring the culture. It's not what we would probably today call colonialism, but it was always first try to listen, try to understand the culture and the people where you come, to see their wisdom and believe that the Holy Spirit was and is already present in what has been there from the beginning, from beginning of creation, I would say. So listening to this wisdom and what we can learn from history, from the tradition. This I have learned a bit, I have to say, and actually because this provoked me by the acknowledgement of country and the stewards of the land here in Australia.
Well, thank you for doing it so beautifully for us today. We're here at St Mary's Cathedral House, folks, at St Mary's. So we're on the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. We proudly acknowledge their ancestors and their elders past and present. Father Bechina, talking about listening and learning, that's something about our church, isn't it? That it's at the same time it's universal, but it is also local. And our schools are like that as well. When you look at our schools here in Australia, what are the things you recognise as being very much part of the universal church? And what do you see that you think, oh yes, that's local, that's an Australian thing?
Yeah, we have this immense tradition. In Australia, we speak about 200 years of success story of Catholic education, and it is. That doesn't mean that there had not been difficulties. Also, as a theologian and a priest, I would have to call it sin. But there may also be conversion. And it is 200 years of success story, I would say. But this 200 years is part of a 2,000 years success story of Catholic education within the church. And this is, again, something that builds on the tradition before us. I just want to mention, you would have heard the word Torah, which is standing for what we call the Old Testament, for the law, Mosaic law, as the content of the covenant of God with his chosen people. But what we translate Torah with law, but what the original meaning in Hebrew language of Torah, you could also translate into education.
Really?
And therefore, I once met with the Minister of Education from Israel, and we had a nice talk on this. They say, the law, the covenant of God with his chosen people, which by Jesus is extended to all nations, has in its DNA education. So whatever we are doing in Catholic education is not just something additional. It's not some nice work which the church does, or if now Microsoft says we should also have some schools or universities in the world to enlarge our influence, to get hold of the young generation. It's not like that. Education for the church is in her essence. It's a part of the mission we cannot give up. So whenever people say, should we not give up, close our schools because they cost money, they cost us trouble and so on, I would say then we have to close ourselves as church, because if we give up education, then we are no longer the church. And education means for us not just getting knowledge and competences into the brains and the hands and the characters whom we are teaching. Education means, or let us speak rather of learning, because in the midst of education, education is accompanying learning. The most important thing is the learner, the one who learns and learns. And learning means that you would have to, that we consider that it's a process of developing what we are, but also as potential. Our doctrine, our Christian belief teaches us that we are created in the likeness, in the image of God. And I often are surprised with what fantasy God has created us. Every single child you meet, or think of yourself or people whom you know, all this potential. But to help to develop this, to get purified, to get developed, to get inserted also in the responsibilities for others, I think that's education. And that's the church has done now for 2000 years, and with a longer tradition. And remember, what is the profession of Jesus? He was not formally a bishop.
Yeah.
He was a teacher.
Oh, I see what you mean. What is the profession, as in what did he do for a job?
Yeah, exactly, his job.
Yeah. He was a teacher, rabbi, master.
Teacher. And by the way, a teacher of 12,
Yeah.
of 12 young or not young men, which I would qualify in our systems, school system today as students with special needs, in the sense that if you see how he cares for them,
Yeah.
and even see them with their limits, with their talent, and all the gospel is account of how Jesus taught them. That's what's happening in the 3 years Jesus was there. His main task was educating them and educating them to become educators of others. Because then when he sends them out, what is the task he entrusts to them? Go out and educate. And again, education in this very broad sense.
So that's how we're universal.
Yeah.
What about how we're local?
In this, the Australian Catholic education, as it is said in the document of the bishops here, is a jewel in the crown. And I think this is bold to say this, but I think it's justified. And this was my experience when I worked for the Holy See and have seen so many education systems, so many Catholic schools, among the 220,000 plus Catholic schools, which you can imagine corresponds to a number of more than 70 million students today, which we have, and the numbers are growing, both of schools as well as of enrollment. But within this big family and this great variety, I think that the Australian, and that's my conviction, and from what I've seen and learned to being here and meeting people responsible for it, it is really an outstanding, what I called before, a flagship.
What do you see that makes you say that?
Sorry?
What do you see that makes you say that? What do you recognize? That
Definitely.
you
And
say Jewel is fair. Jewel
Yeah.
is pretty high praise. But,
Yeah, it has to do with value, probably also financial value. That's
we're
what
well-funded
people here.
comparatively, yeah.
That's what people here say, yeah, we can do it because we are well funded
by international standards.
But by international standards, I would say it's not even the best one. We have other countries where we could have even more capital funding, for example.
Yeah.
But that's not the issue, because you can use money for good purpose or for bad purpose. And I think the money here is well invested in the education system. You have relative big offices for supervision and for development for Catholic schools, but you have this really massive and impressive number of nearly 2,000 Catholic schools here.
Yeah.
And it is good because in many parts of the world we struggle that we get something on the ground, or we have many schools, but in one classroom you have more than 100 kids with one nun teaching them,
Yeah.
and they're doing a brilliant job, but they don't have time and resources to go through more general and principal question of how to lead a system. And I think what you are doing, investing also in research on education, in cooperation with the Catholic universities here, developing professional strategies, how to cope with safeguarding issues, with protecting children from cyberbullying and other things. That's just to give some example. I could give 10 others as well. But you can put money into research and into creating knowledge, creating experience, which, and this is another point which I really appreciate here, you then are ready to share with others. And I think this is something which we have to learn even more in the church. We have always done it, and we speak about the synodal church, which is together on a way, but it means also sharing of resources. And we can share our resources. Australia can share resources in education and in knowledge about education and in quality of Catholic education. But probably we have a shortage of teachers, and probably we will get sooner or later also teachers from other countries, because there is the quality. And let's give the example of the School of Education of the Eastern African University in Kenya, Nairobi, which is a school of education which, from its scientific output and from the teacher training which they offer, I would say it's not far behind the top schools of education in the very developed countries, in the very rich countries. And I would definitely call a School of Education of ACU as a top one worldwide.
I think that's a good provocation for us, actually, Father Bechina, because we do look internationally in this time of a shortage of teachers. We have so many Irish teachers supporting us here in our schools, but maybe we could be a little more creative about
Yeah, and
how we're
then we
doing
have
that.
to look that it is not provoking brain drain. Somebody could now immediately think, okay, that's how many countries do. They do headhunting and try to identify best talent
Well, I would worry
in
about
other
that.
countries and bring them out, bring them to
We
their
bring the best
country.
teachers from Kenya to
And
here.
they are lost for their countries.
Yeah.
I think if we as Catholic Church would do something like that, and we are about to discuss this, then we have to look that it is balanced, that it is fair, and it's a real sharing of resources, where we say, okay, how can we do it for the better for all?
Yes.
And there I think there is a lot of potential in it, and the best model is that in the end both sides have an advantage, both sides recognize that there is not a one-way communication and one way of giving and one way of receiving. That's the ideal.
Born of
But the
proper
worst
solidarity.
case is what we have in some Arabic countries,
Yeah.
where literally 80% of the educated youth, so those with academic degrees, have left the country. And then we don't have to blame in first instance religion, culture, whatever, but it is the absence of the educated. If you imagine Australian society, and from today to tomorrow 80% of academics would leave Australia, I don't know what would happen to the society.
Yeah, it would be
but
terrible.
It happened to some countries,
Yeah.
and there is a responsibility. Therefore, I think we have to look for this kind of balanced mobility, balanced sharing of resources. And again, I think Australia has done a very, very good job. I've seen it also for a bit working for the government and with the government in Asia Pacific higher education initiatives, especially for recognition of degrees, which is necessary for this kind of mobility. And Australia has always had this attitude to say we should not exploit
Yes.
other countries. We should invest in the region, because in the end, all will have their advantage if the region flourishes.
Father, I'm sure the Catholic Church has been leaders in that
Exactly.
attitude.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
our
is.
Catholic
And
universities
that's
who are so prominent in education here.
and if we look to the Pacific Islands
Yeah.
and see how the role of Catholic education there in Fiji, in Tonga, in Samoa, and in those countries, I met sometimes with even education ministers from these countries, and typically they have attended Catholic schools and they have a real esteem of the Catholic schools, even if probably the percentage of population is not that high of Catholics in
Yes, yes,
the
still the
population. Yeah.
education is a stronghold. Father Bechina, can we talk about how you have this sort of global perspective of education? You're so um, able to talk about the situation in Africa or the situation in Asia Pacific or the situation in Australia. This is from your work at the Holy See.
Yeah,
You were,
definitely. Yeah.
I love the fantastic names we have for these bodies, but you were the Undersecretary of the Congregation for Catholic Education of the Holy See, which we now know as the Dicastery for Culture and Education. So I think it's useful not to spend too long on it, but if we have an idea of that body and sort of the function of the body
Yeah,
and what it
yeah.
does.
So definitely you can compare it to a Ministry of Education
Right.
and Science and universities. It's different in different countries, but it has the role of a ministry and plays this role also on international level. You may know that the Holy See is a subject of international law, so we have also our diplomacy. We have the Holy See has its ambassadors, which we call the apostolic
Yeah.
nuncios, and there is an Australian ambassador
To the Holy
to
See,
the Holy
yeah.
See in Rome, and we were good friends for most of this time when I was there.
Yes,
And
you've reminded me that I shouldn't use the term Vatican and Holy See interchangeably because it's a
yeah,
different.
but
Yeah.
this would
Yeah,
be
let's not get
lead
into
us too
that.
far
Yeah,
to
yeah.
distinguish.
But the Holy
this.
See is
The
subject
Vatican is
of
just
the
the
law.
territory where the Holy
Yeah.
See operates on.
Right.
And but the Holy See has also its own higher education system.
Yeah.
That means we have our own academic degrees for the accreditation and for the recognition of these degrees. We need no other public authority in any other country. We are equal as any other country in this process, and this has been also accepted by all the UNESCO regions, including the last one was the Arab UNESCO region, where we always part in the national conventions, in the international conventions for the recognition of degree. But this is already a very technical question.
Yeah.
Coming back to what you asked,
Yeah.
what the role of the congregation is to supervise the whole system of Catholic education. As I mentioned, these 220,000 Catholic schools, then probably 1,500 Catholic universities, even more other higher education institutions, the schools of theology, which we have all around the world, and all what is formal education, not informal education. But the formal education is all under the competence. But you can imagine that with an office which has literally not more than 30 people working there, in my time for education, you cannot just micromanage everything. It's what is the role of St. Peter and the Pope in the Church, strengthening his brethren in faith. So this is strengthening, encouraging. That means about also listening to the different countries, seeing what's going on there, doing networking, preparing documents which can give some orientation, but everything very much trusting that people at the spot know what they do and they do it well. And this is a bit the experience which I had in this time. And I had this was for me myself a great gift which I didn't look for. I was called without any merit and without any ambition to get there, because at the time they looked for somebody with German-speaking language skills, which is my mother tongue.
Yeah.
And then they discovered that I can also do modestly also work in English,
Yeah.
which I did always more. And then by 2004, 2005, there was a strategical decision still taken by John Paul II. He wanted, as the Catholic Church is the strongest, or probably even the only really global player in the field of education, he wanted us to play a stronger role in international education, higher education policy. And then in these years, 2003, 2004, 2005, the Holy See started to really invest modestly, but invest into structures. So we got a small office with two, 3 people working for international relations in higher education, and then step by step also school education. And I was entitled or asked to build this office, and that meant that for 10, 15 years I representing the Holy See in UNESCO, in the Council of Europe, in Asia Pacific Recognition Convention, in the Global Convention, in the African Convention, in all these bodies and initiatives on different continents. I came really around the world. I met in this time personally with many ministers of education of probably 80, 90 or more countries in the world, and we had these discussions, and then when I went to one of these countries, often you had to go there for a conference, for a business meeting. And for example, in Australia it's obvious, in Asia if you have a 20 hours or more hours flight and you go somewhere, you say probably it makes sense to remain 2-3 days more. And this I made to this was my good practice, so to say, that I went 2 days earlier or left 2 days later, and always tried to meet with people from the Catholic education system, whatever we had. And I would not know any country in the world where there is not something going on of Catholic education. And in many countries I've seen at least some examples of it, and have spoken to the people who are responsible, and that also inflamed a bit my own curiosity. So I did also a little bit of research in the meantime, for example, on the question of religious freedom with regards to Catholic but other faith-based schools, to the funding issue, how this interrelates, how much you are free to do your own, how much you are conditioned by standard curriculum, by whatever. And this is really a fascinating topic, because it's so different. But the lesson I learned is that the church was always able to adopt whatever threat, whatever situation it was. We have dramatic losses. Sri Lanka, we lost from 700 Catholic schools nearly all, and rebuilt 30 now. And they do not get any cent from the government, and they are not allowed to charge tuition, but they find a way to finance the schools. That's one extreme, and you have other extremes. But for me, and that's the good news, is there were always people on the spot who found solutions to maintain, to develop, to bring to growth Catholic education, even in moments where we in Rome thought it's the end of the game.
Can we transition now, Father, to talking about some of the things that you've learned and observed in that wonderful global role? Can we talk about the identity of a Catholic school? I'm interested in what you think are the key hallmarks of the identity of Catholic education, of a Catholic school. What makes us Catholic?
That's one of the most frequently asked questions, which I
should
got
have
in my career. And the first thing I learned, and when you try to answer this question to different people with different expectations, and looking at this broad this system of 220,000 plus Catholic schools, I learned, and I'm aware that there is not a simple one-shot answer where I can say it is this and exactly this, and not the other. Sometimes kidding, I said to people when they ask me the question and said there would be, so when they said, give me the definition of what a Catholic school is,
Right.
distinguished from a secular school.
Yeah.
I said I could, but it would take a little bit time. I would give you 220,000 definitions, because what I believe is that there is a legitimate plurality among Catholic schools, and I have not seen twice exactly the same school, even if it's the same order and the architecture was the same,
Yeah.
and the dress of the teacher were the same and the school uniform were the same, but the school is not the same.
I
So
understand
the
my father still. I understand you go to the school in Fairfield, you come to the school in Bankstown. They're different
yeah,
schools, but there are still things that are the
yeah,
same
and
about
I will
them.
come to this
Yeah.
point. I
Okay.
just mentioned
You
another
keep
one.
going.
In 2022, and it was one of my last works before I finished my work for the congregation. When I finished my second term of leadership there, we produced a document on the identity of a Catholic school, and there we
Yeah.
have three parts which make up the identity. The first one is the tradition in which it is, and it's the doctrine of the church. It's a social doctrine. It's our faith. It's our belief in Jesus Christ, in the relation with a living God who calls us to be His sons and daughters. So this is the tradition.
Yeah.
And we are living in this tradition, and to be in this tradition, to be in this family is a first point. The second is then, what are the legal norms and who are the ones who are crucial? Obviously, to be a Catholic school depends also on the quality of a school principal, of the teachers, of the parents and their involvement. So the school community has but different roles. That's important to distinguish. The parents are not the principal. So they don't have to decide on certain things, which is the decision of the principal. And the principal and the teachers cannot take away the responsibility of the parents. But that would be another discussion. And the third point is, often in moments of challenge, the question of what is Catholic identity comes to be more visible. When there is issues where expectations of parents and say, but we would like to have just Catholic kids who are very like we ourselves, or do we have this great plurality? So what makes a Catholic school, and now I come to the answer of your question. I kept your patience for a moment. I would say, but this is now my personal definition, I would say a Catholic school is a school where it's likely that the students not likely, where students get a good quality education, which is not which is at least at the level of other schools in the place, and at the same time it is the place where it's very likely that they get also in touch with God, that they experience that God exists, that they experience that the message Jesus Christ brought us, so the gospel message, is something liberating, something changing, something which opens us a new horizon. And to say it in other words, I think, and this is our ambition, but there I would also insist on it, that the kids in our schools feel that they are seen, that they are understood, and they are loved. And I think that's the desire of every human being. And the key of the gospel message is that we have in God a good Father who exactly does this. He sees us, He understands us, and He loves us. And if we realize in a school to make the kids experience that they are seen, that means attention, that means safe space, that means care for their well-being, including safeguarding, yes, we have to say this, that they are understood, so that we have teachers who look where they are, who engage with them in a dialogue, but don't forget that they are teachers, so that they also can lead and guide them, but this is part of being understood. And this all happens because, and this they should feel they are loved, and they are loved in an unconditioned way by God. And I think this corresponds to today's challenge, because social media does sometimes, I don't want to just to judge about social media, and I'm not an expert, but it most likely does not communicate to the kids that they are seen, that they are understood, and that they are loved. But it can be, let's think about body shaming and the bad experience of many of our kids. They have, especially the girls, who get into crisis, and what is lacking? This deep confidence that they are seen, they want to be seen, and therefore they post their photos. But who looks at them? And how do they look at them? And how do they expose them so to attract the attention of others? But we should communicate to them, you don't need to do this to be seen, because you are seen first by God, and you are seen by us, who take this as a mission which we have received from God. You are understood, and that is not to impose what others believe you should be, and you are loved. And I think to keep also the order of things, many of these kids believe I have to do something to be seen. But it's the other way around. They are loved by God, and therefore they are somebody. And because they are loved by God and are somebody, they can do something. But it is not they have first to do, not they demonstrate their success, not have to demonstrate their abilities, their merits, whatever. That's not the reason why God loves them, and we should not love them because they are good students. I believe often the one where we have the impression he does not deserve it, but he needs it. And I think this is Catholic education at its best.
Thank you for
nobody
that
will
beautiful
say,
answer.
tick the box, we have passed the exam. That will be always more than we can do. But it should be always what we aim, what we desire, what we commit to do.
Right. Thank you, Father. Folks, you're listening to a live stream, a special Sydney Catholic Schools live stream. Our guest is Father Friedrich Bechina. He's the former Under-Secretary to the Congregation for Catholic Education, and he's here as a guest of Sydney Catholic Schools. Father, what a beautiful answer. Thank you very much. Can we talk about Pope Francis and education? Someone sent me a quote this week that Pope Francis had said, education is a little bit like walking, where you have one foot that is safe and secure and another foot where you're taking a risk. Do you know this?
I remember the scene. It was a meeting in the audience hall in Rome. Now I'm wondering, could have been I guess it was the Jesuit colleges and schools. Could also be in Italian or just in the Italian context. Actually, he was speaking Italian. This I'm sure. And he even imitated how
I did.
It was really impressive. A very impressive speech he gave, and it was very much also appreciated by the many students who were there in the audience hall. It was packed. What does he mean? And I think it shows us a bit of his Jesuit charism. Who in an Ignatian way accompanies people, and I think it could also be a bit a chiave di lettura, so a hermeneutical key to understand and to unpack his whole pontificate. I think it explains what he was about with the church, to provoking, and that's education. And he said, how do we learn to go? If you have both feet on safe ground, and when little children, the little boy of my niece just learning to, it's cute,
it's
learning to walk. But first thing is to get up. To get up and put your hand somewhere to pick up. But that's not walking. If in this stage his name is Constantine, wants to walk, and he tries to imitate his brother, who is 5 years old. Then he immediately falls down, gets up again and tries again. So that's a way. But at the beginning, he has to learn to have both feet in safe ground and to stand without falling. But then, and this is the enormous development in his life, when he learns to do a first step without falling down immediately. But what does a first step mean? You remain, you cannot go with both feet at the same time. So one has to remain in solid ground, fixed to the ground, and then the other can freely move, and you have to learn to balance without falling down. And then as soon as the other step has got to a new position, you can take the other one. And then so you learn to move on. And I think this is a beautiful image for education, but also for our faith. Everything, always we have to be somewhere grounded. So we are not here to reinvent the wheel, but we are also not here to defend where we are and say this is now the end of any development because we are the best and it's the best solution forever. But we have to walk with the signs of the times, with the new provocations, with the new challenges in which we are. Our curiosity that forces us to go ahead.
Yeah.
But also the need of development also for the church. So it is this balance between being rooted in our own tradition, in what is not negotiable, what is not changeable. And there is elements in our faith that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, that we don't have to take risk on this. That's solid doctrine. But then we have to learn to put this into motion, into development, into a dynamic process. Pope also said, who are the ones who are not obsessed to get immediately a solution for every question, but do a first step to get somewhere, to a solution. And often the first step, if I look on Constantine, the little one of my niece, the first step doesn't look to bring him anywhere, but it is the first step.
But it's still something.
And then if he falls down, he learns to stand up again, and that's also part of this process.
Okay.
So even when we commit sin, even if we fail to reach our own standards, even we produce a scandal, this should be a point where we say, okay, let's learn from it, let's get up, but don't go back, go forward, look forward, see what we can do.
So it shouldn't be just a response to stay safe in what we have, to build up the wall.
Exactly.
And say we'll preserve this. Yeah.
And it's said, there's the question, why is the Catholic Church the institution that's with the longest survival in history? I think because it had the potential to develop, and developing remain the same, and remaining the same, developing and like a human person grows, like a plant grows, like every living organism changes by being the same.
Yeah.
And it is said that another institution which is not as old as the Catholic Church but quite old is university, and for university it's the same. So also education and the methodology of education has to take this risk of development, being grounded in good experience, in what we have achieved. But I would never, and this is discussion also we had in the last days with the Australians, those responsible for education here, Catholic education here, that we said, okay, you have achieved so much, but the worst case would to say, okay, we defend what we have achieved and we don't look to the future and don't ask ourselves, where do we want to stand tomorrow? Probably in another place, in a different condition, but with the same aspiration to be a Catholic school. And it will look probably different than today. I'm convinced that it will look different. But it has to look different in 20 years if it wants to be faithful to the same mission to the same identity, to the same roots, to the same principles, values, whatever you want to call them.
We have to always strive for that
Yeah.
dynamic tension between being true to who we are and looking for outward
Yeah.
engagement, for that listening or the dialogue or the new thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's our zone, if we have that zone of safety and the zone of risk? When you look at us in Australia, what is our zone of risk? What should we be looking towards from in your perspective?
Zone of risks, I think that's all the challenges in which we are.
Okay.
And that's a zone of risk, but where we have to go into. We can say, okay, we try to fill gaps and to find immediate solutions, but we have also a long term. And one of the big challenges, obviously, is the shortage of teachers. The preparation of teachers is a challenge. We have good resources here, but we have to think who will be the students of tomorrow, where will they come? Do we manage to help, for example, Australians with immigrants? How long does it take till, how does it take 1 generation, 2 generations before migrants will be teachers? So we are working in some countries, probably also in Australia, to specifically support young students with migrant background who are probably the first ones in their family to have finished high school, to go further to university and to become teachers. I think it's really important that we invest especially in those, and those may have more talent than many other students, but probably not as well educated with their language skills. So the problem is the language skills, and investing in their language skills, probably we unclose other talent. And I think these kind of, that's just to give you an example. So we have teacher shortage, and we could say, how do we make the work of teachers more effective? I put this question today in artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
It would be funny now to read out what artificial
Was it good?
intelligence told me. They were very good.
So you typed in something like, how should Australia deal with, Catholic schools in Australia deal with the teacher shortage?
I didn't make it specific for Australia, but
Yeah.
I said, could artificial intelligence help us
Yeah.
with the problem of teacher training, of teacher shortage? And the answers were good.
Right.
But I think it's we can use them, and we have to use the answers which artificial intelligence will produce, because this is good practice. This is artificial intelligence doesn't do anything other than to analyze data,
Yeah.
and they have probably access to data how in some countries shortage of teachers was addressed and what they did, and they give you then measures like making the system more efficient. You change your recruitment policies. See how you keep people in the system which would like to leave the system, or get back people into the system. By the way, we have a lot of women coming back after their children have reached a certain age and want to become teachers, also because they had this wonderful experience of teaching their own children, and want to continue to work with children even if they are already in the age of grandmothers and grandfathers. So this is something which we can consider. But we can take the recommendations from artificial intelligence, how to deal with teacher shortage. But I think there is this creativity, and also this belief that what we are doing here is something guided also by what we call the Holy Spirit. So that there is a capacity which has to do with charism, which has to do with reflection, meditation, prayer, to come also to solutions which go beyond what artificial intelligence tells us. Because I think, and this is also, that's both from the human perspective, the merely human perspective, but also from the Catholic perspective, we bring in other dimensions which probably encourage us, push us to solutions which are not the most likely ones, or which we would not immediately see statistically as the most effective one, but we have an insight that we do something good and right if we take this solution. For example, the whole moral aspect comes in, and we talked before on using talent from other countries in a balanced mobility. There the ethical question comes in, and that's the faith-based question. To say, am I entitled to use resources which we have to share with others, and how can I use these resources, not diminishing the well-being and the potential and the resources of others? How can we use resources so that by using them they get multiplied and not reduced? And sharing is often the first step, and this sharing comes from this understanding that we are not alone in the world, and that the others are brothers and sisters to us, because we are both created by God in His image and likeness.
Father, you're talking about artificial intelligence. You know, I was going to ask you if you used it, and now I know that you do.
Yeah, it's yeah. Sometimes it's a bit. You want to save time, and probably you get older, and then are no longer so capable to do in short time a good preparation, and then you say, okay, I can save some help
time here.
By the way, you asked me of my work in former years and even before under secretary, when I started there as simple official, simple worker in the vineyard of the Lord, as Pope Benedict would have said it.
Right.
And at that time, often the cardinal asked me to write a speech or a homily for him, especially when it was in German. And sometimes this took for me 3-4 days of just doing research, because I knew that he wanted to bring in this idea or mention this saint or this situation in this country, and to get all this data. And now I have experienced that sometimes you get the answers to these questions, which took me some years ago
3 days,
a week. Now I get it in 30 seconds. That doesn't mean that I myself and then the cardinal with my drafts would still have to go through it and look at it, but I think it's an enormous help and saves a lot of time. The question is then, what do I do with this time? Because is it just that I want to take a shortcut, and it is good that I know what it means to do research also in books and with libraries and so, but using it and then using the time properly it's another discourse. And I would say, and this is something which we discussed here also with teachers, the risk or the temptation is that we use artificial intelligence as a shortcut or a substitute to something where we can and should use it, but before we can and should use it, we should have learned certain things which we are likely not to be learned by us if we immediately start with artificial intelligence. So if you let critical thinking be done by artificial intelligence, if you let artificial intelligence do a discernment for a big decision for you, or even worse, you ask artificial intelligence and say, this is the situation, so what should I do? And it gives a good recommendation, and you exactly do it, but you don't think through it, then it's the wrong way. If you have learned to do a process and you are familiar of doing and you feel comfortable to do these processes of discernment and decision making, then you guide your own process of discernment and decision making, engage with others to listen to their counsels, and then why not also looking what the solution would be given by artificial intelligence. But if I'm not capable to go through this process because I've learned it, then it becomes critical, because then I remain underdeveloped in my potential and use it as a substitute. And people today, in discussions, people said that many students in schools would have their difficulties to read a map, because they are so used to to the
Google
navigation
Maps, yeah.
system and just go left, go right. But is it human? Is it
Yeah.
interesting? Would I like that I'm always going at the hand of my father, who say now we are going right, or squeezes me to go right or to go left? Do I want this, or do I want to be the one who sees what the roads are and then say, now I take the decision to go left because I want to go there? And if I discover that this is not the right way, then no way. Turn around, go back. But just depending on something or somebody who would always tell me what the next step is to do, that would be boring, and I would believe also not human.
Right. The Vatican published your old dicastery, the Dicastery for
It's true,
Culture and
yeah.
Education, published a document about artificial intelligence. Was it called Antiqua e Nova?
Yeah.
Something like this. In January this year.
Yeah.
What did you like in this document?
Actually, we started this work already when I was
I
still
bet,
there.
yeah.
But it was funny because we had a meeting that then all people from the Holy See of all the dicasteries
Yeah.
who were discussing artificial intelligence. And it turned out I was one of the last ones to speak because it was also part of our responsibility, as now this dicastery is the one to issue this document together with Doctrine of Faith. But it was funny because among these 80 people gathered there and talking about artificial intelligence, I got the impression that at that time, so 4 or 5 years ago, 2/3 of the people were based on the same Wikipedia article on artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
And I said at that time, and say, shouldn't we listen to our Catholic universities or others who are really experts, who are doing edge-cutting research on these topics and producing, are in the process of developing these systems. And there's people who have done a lot of research on the impact of society and the impact of the person in psychology and in other areas. And I think, and this is something I like very much in this document, it has this broad view where you see they must have consulted real experts of all kinds. And it starts, which I like very much, that they go also, we said with this being rooted in tradition, they go also back where are the roots. And it was fascinating for me that already in the 50s, when the first learning machines, learning is under
Yeah, inverted commas.
inverted commas,
Yeah.
because this is not really learning, but it's analyzing and comparing data, and it's mathematic procession of data. But already in the 50s, in one of the leading universities in the US, they had a study group which researched for a year on the possible anthropological, psychological, sociological impact of machines which begin to develop themselves and not because they are. And this is quoted in this document, so you see this historical breadth, and then also looking around at 360 degrees, so the whole circle, what all the elements that could be interesting. So it's a very strong the emphasis on what does artificial intelligence to do to human life, to our, so it's the anthropological question,
Right.
but it's also the pedagogical question, and it's the moral question. People would probably immediately say, okay, it's an instrument, it's neutral.
Yeah, no.
But an instrument can be in the use neutral, but probably it, if you want or not, it produces effects. And this is something which also is mentioned in the document,
Yeah.
which we have to consider, is
Yeah.
that the use of artificial intelligence is enormously resource consuming.
What
That
does
means
it mean
it
for
needs
labor? What does it mean for the environment?
yeah, but it's consuming water, and it's
Yeah.
consuming energy. And then also the other things, that this is what does it mean for labor market? What does it mean, with the examples I've given you before, for the development of a young person which probably is too unprepared to use it, and use it as a shortcut or a substitute, or people who do not longer distinguish between the real world and the virtual world. That brings us in the whole world of sexuality as well, which is not the most important topic for us, but we see that it is a risk that you begin to substitute or to get satisfaction for your own desire in a way which is, let me take another analogy to it. If somebody on the down out at the sea who is getting thirsty begins to drink salt water, and you will, the effect is you get always more dehydrated,
Dehydrated.
and you will die of it.
Right.
But you have in the first moment
Your thirst is
the
quenched.
impression is that
Yeah.
I've satisfied my desire, and something, there is this risk, but I say there's always risk, and if there is more risk, okay, we have to be better prepared, and that's our challenge, especially in Catholic schools. And another point which I like very much is the question: how does artificial intelligence and the use of digital media impact on our relationship with God? Or what does it have to do with the religious qualities, the religious destiny, the religious aspirations of a human being? And there, does artificial intelligence take the position of God? Do we want to be seen, to be understood, to be loved by artificial intelligence? Or do we need something more?
Father, we are about to crash into the end of our time. And you've taken me to something which I really wanted to ask you. So let's go back into the school context now. In this milieu, in this context, as we look ahead for the next 50 years, what skills and attitudes should we be trying to cultivate in our students to cope with all of these things you've just talked about and everything else that happens in this world? What skills and leaders will skills and dispositions will the leaders in the 2050s need?
Let me quote the same meeting with Pope Francis,
Okay.
which you already, and he, it's very simple. It's very simple images, and he says, good education has to be education of the head, of the heart, and of hands. So it is intellectual. It has to do with content, with something which we learn to know, to understand, to deal with, to critical discuss, to communicate to others. So that's the head. Then there's the heart. I think, and this is something where we have to look, because this is one of the crucial points, and one of the key risks is our emotional development. And good education would care also of the emotions. I was impressed when visiting here St. Mary's Cathedral College and School here, and so the very little ones, how they, with a very good methodology, were somehow engaged also to learn to deal with their own emotions, and emotions in connection to what they know, what they learn, what they communicate. So with the content part and with the intellectual part, with the head. And the difficult thing is that there must be something that connects head and heart. So that's not two different. I live my emotions emotional, and I do my thinking intellectual, but it should go hand in hand and cross-fertilize each other. But not enough. It has to go to the hand, because it's not enough that I understand that something is good, but then I have to put it into practice and to do it. With my hand and my feet, and to begin to do it begins with the first step, which means going out of the zone of security, of where I'm rooted, and take the risk to set a step. And this, I would say, in short, is Catholic education. But I would say, and this is the good news, we are not left alone, and we have the little child. Let's go back to the little boy of my niece, Constantine. One hand he has stretched out to reach the hand of God, like in the Sixtina, in this beautiful image from
In the Sistine
Michelangelo.
Chapel,
Yeah. But that's the impression I get. So he has grabbed the hand of God, so he is confident. I can take the next step because somebody's hold me on my right hand. On the left hand, it's now his parents, it's little brother, it's others. And I think this is exactly what the Catholic school offers as added value. So we don't leave the kids alone in their step, and it's not just the teacher who instructs them and tells them and engages with them to do it, but there is two outstretched hands. One is the hand of God, so we have to bring our students in this context so they understand that's my good Father who, without any condition, loves me, understands me. No, the other way around.
Start with C.
Sees me, understands me, and loves me, and therefore guides me. And when I fall down, He's the one to pull me up again. And on the other hand, with the other hand, with the left hand, He grabs the hand of the parents, of the mother, and they will one day they will be gone.
The teacher.
The teacher, but they will always, and that's the church, that's the community, and the community should be reached out hands to go together, and that's the synodal church. Let's grab the hand of the other and say, okay, let's go ahead. And one day it's your hand that pulls me up again when I have fallen, and the next day it's my hand to pull you up when you have fallen. I've experienced this my own, and imagine how often I really fell on my nose, you say it in German.
That works.
But it was always somebody, sometimes at the right hand, God Himself, who gave me consolation and pulled me up. And sometimes it were the other people in the church. But there was always somebody to pull me up again.
Father Bechina, thank you so much. Thank you for being with us today and for sharing your wisdom. And thanks to all of you who are listening. This has been a production of the Mission Identity team at Sydney Catholic Schools. You can follow and find all of our videos on the Mission Identity YouTube channel. Thanks everyone.